Welcome to the Good Rookie Show. My name is Fahim.
And my name is Nellie J, y'all. And we are Good Rookie.
That's right.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Good Tuesday. And guess what? It's the Good Rookie Show.
Yep.
Yep. What's going on, y'all? Woo. Fahim, I'm excited for this guest. I've known her for at least a couple years since the pandemic. We're now in 2023, and I'm excited to get into this episode for him. So please introduce who we got.
I'm excited. We have somebody who is very hardworking. We have somebody who's Hoopspace's family, and we will be getting into that later in the For the Culture segment. But I'm really excited because she has a lot on her plate and a lot to let people know about what she got going on. Let's welcome Maliika Walker to the podcast today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Let's do it.
Debbie chant you in, my dear. We chant you in. But no, we're excited to have you on the podcast. And I think what's really dope about this is that we're going to cover a lot of topics. I do want to get your thoughts, Maliika, on the fact that the WNBA announced that they're going to have an actual game for the first time ever in Canada. I think it's going to be May 13th between Chicago and Minnesota, the Lynx in the Sky. What's your thoughts on having a team come to Canada, like Toronto?
I'm excited that they're going to have that game there. Maybe that's a prelude to what's to come with the team there. And I wish I can go, you know what I mean, and actually witness it. And hopefully, hopefully it's well attended and everything. I'm excited for it, to get a game going internationally for the W, and to have a franchise, to have a WNBA team in Canada would be awesome. So I'm hoping that this is the start of something new that's coming. One of the two new franchises. So we'll see. We'll see. But I'm excited. I know now y'all better be in the house.
Oh, I'll be there. What do you want to calendar? I shall be in the building.
Yep, I'm excited.
I'm definitely maybe for the culture more. I'll pin maybe a question that I have in regards to the W and your involvement with what's happening with the movement. But let's do this. Keeping it on the W. So there's a most recent announcement.
W. You mean on the woman or WNBA? On the W.
WNBA and WNBA. Well, don't they call it the W?
No, I like it though. I don't know. I've never heard someone call it the W, but maybe they do. I don't know.
They do. They always
do. Okay, I call it the WNBA. So
Me too.
Okay.
Me too.
Sometimes I even write, when I write a tweet, I'll say the W in there.
Right.
But...
Yeah, I've been seeing that. All right, so Maya Moore, she's just had the most recent retirement just a few days ago. I just want to get your input in regards to that, Maliika. You follow it a lot more.
Maya Moore is one of my favorite players of all time. My pin tweet today, I put out a pin tweet today that's on my profile on the thread on Maya Moore, and just an amazing player, like from UConn on to the things she did at UConn, and the things she did in Division I, will never be duplicated. Like, she was an amazing player. Like, she was a perfect example for me. She wasn't the most vocal, you know what I mean? You wouldn't see her, you didn't see her much like speaking or anything like that. She did interviews here and there, but what she did was she performed on the court. You know what I mean? She let her game pretty much speak for her. But, you have a woman who, put it this way, she's the only woman basketball player in Division I history to have 2,500 points, 1,000 rebounds, 500 assists, 250 steals, and 150 block shots. The only woman in Division I.
Wow.
There was only one Maya Moore. She was the first women's player to sign with Jordan Brand. Now you see so many of them on there, but for a while she was the only one. And of course, a buzzer beater in 2015 in the WNBA finals, in Game 3. There's so many memories of her, and I knew this day was coming. where she was going to formally say goodbye because she hasn't been on the court since 2018. So her coming back to the game, I didn't see it happening, but the fact that it's final is like she's gone. And considering how quiet she is, and she only pops up when she's promoting something, we may not see her for a while. Like, as at least if we were going to see her in media or coaching or something, I don't think we're going to see much of her. Like, she was quiet when she played, and she showed up when she, like, she took pictures, and she would, do promo photos and interviews here and there, but she wasn't very in your face and out there and vocal. Mm-hmm. So, and during this time she's been away from the game, you haven't seen much of her. So I don't think you're going to see a lot of her, which puts like a finality to it to me. But she is my favorite player, W of all time. Cheryl Miller's another favorite, but she didn't play in the W, right?
Well, I mean, she was different era. Different era,
completely different era.
Yep.
But I love Candace Parker. I love some of the greats, but Maya is my favorite. Candace is, and Cheryl Miller are right there too, but Maya is my favorite. So it's sad to see her. Well, happy for her because she has a family, right? She has a son now.
She fell in love, has a family.
Yeah. She has her husband.
Question for you, Maliika. Do you think the pay in the WNBA wasn't, I mean, I don't want to go here, but I just feel that, like, do you think what's her incentive to play in the WNBA outside of just like the love of basketball, right? Because the pay isn't the best, right? You put your body through so much.
I don't think it was really the play. I don't think it was really the pay, because she could have played overseas.
No. I don't mean like that. That's why she retired. I think she retired because of her family and just like, she shifted her perspective on what matters to her. Yeah, it wasn't the pay, but I'm just saying, like, I just think that, I don't know, like, I just feel that, like, in America, like, in terms of the quality of play and how they're treated versus Russian leagues and European leagues, it's a kind of a step down to other type leagues in the world from what I've kind of read and seen. So I'm just curious, like, in terms of her playing basketball, I understand her mindset changed, but it's so rare to see someone of her caliber, like you mentioned, like from high school up, like she was phenomenal. She has no gap. Like, high school, she was averaging 19 still. I think 8 point something rebounds and over 3 steals a game. College, 19, 20. WNBA, like, every level she was dominant, right? Every level. So it's rare to see someone who's so dominant in this sport of basketball retire early, right? So I'm just wondering, like if it was a better pay or they were treated a bit more, because I don't think really people really appreciated her unless you were a basketball purist. I don't think she was appreciated as much until she, like, left the game and was like, oh, I miss Maya, where she did. But I feel like at the time people weren't really appreciating her as much. You know what I'm saying? So I'm wondering if that's also a thing where she's putting all this effort into a league or to a sport that wasn't really getting, like, the love and the nurture that she should have gotten at the time. So what's your thoughts on that?
I actually don't think that had anything to do with it. I think that she was in a relationship with Jonathan Irons. She fell in love with him, and to give her all to fight for his release, which they did win. And once they did win it, then the focus was on her marriage, getting married, and her family, her child, her son. Now she has a son. Like, her priorities completely shifted. But I wanted to make a comment on what you said about international play, because I don't believe they see it as a step down. Like, some of the players, like, you look at their interviews and some of the things they say, like, with this, I think what the WNBA, wants them to do is to put a preferential focus on the WNBA, which is why they have that rule, which starts this year but really hits next year, where you could be suspended if you're late to camp. This year you can be fined, and Breanna Stewart has already said that is an issue, that is a conflict for her, because she plays overseas every year. I think that for WNBA players and some that don't even make the WNBA, this is their time. This is your chance to, first of all, most of them live off of that because that's basically where most of them get their money because of the pay differences in the US. Like, this is where they get their livelihood. And then if you're not like a Sue Bird or somebody else you can find other income, like between coaching and other opportunities in the US for sponsorships. All players don't go overseas, like Aja Wilson doesn't go overseas, and some others, but Kelsey didn't go this year. But her stock is up.
I think the Brittany Griner thing, I think some players didn't want to go.
And the Brittany Griner definitely had an impact on players not playing overseas, but a lot of them are still went over there now. A lot of them still, still went over there to play. Like the pay disparity is just too much. If you knew you can make triple or even more of what you're being paid just for a few months to play overseas, and if you say you're young, but why wouldn't you jump at the chance to do that? Learn a new culture. For years, that was the only way women played professionally. Yeah. Like you talk to your Coopers and some of those players, that's where they played. They had to live and play overseas. So I don't think it's looked upon. There's a podcast that I'll send to you that's by that's focused on Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi.
I think I heard the one about them in Russia and their experience there.
Yep. And just how
that's the one I listened to. Yeah. Well, that's the one that I fully was like, I didn't know Russia. Well, at the time, that owner, but they were like being treated like queens out there. You know what I mean? But to your point, like I agree. I think Maya mindset shifted, and she just has to focus on that. I like to ask these questions because I do think that WNBA is at a crossroad after the Brittany Griner incident where we have to protect these women, and we got to find ways to incentivize them to either play in America or if they go overseas, like support them, because to kind of say this or that is not really fair because the pay is not enough to live off, especially nowadays, like to live off WNBA pay for an entire year is not enough.
With the expenses that they have, the medical expenses.
Exactly.
And things of that nature, like
nutrition.
Some people do see that it's enough, but I don't see it as enough.
I can't see it.
They deserve more. So we'll see what moves that players make. More players are taking coaching jobs in the off season.
Okay.
You have athletes and limited. You have that small league that is about to get going. And you have a bunch of pro players playing in that league.
Okay.
So some are doing that. We're about to get into free agency, and that's about to be a hot time. So it's about to be a hot time in the free agency. Trades are going all over the place. Like,
yep, I think the Liberty got a great player.
Yeah, Jonquel Jones.
I saw that. I was like, okay. Them, honestly, I really wanted Sabrina to do well. Like, I actually watched her from college too. So hopefully they can figure it out in New York, because they make it to the playoffs, just that they don't, go past the first round.
See what happens. I'm thinking about my Liberty. People are still holding out hope for Breonna Stewart and Vandis.
I did see that rumor last year.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
So Maliika, you mentioned just a moment ago about coaching. This is a thought that I've kind of passed by some people, but I've never passed it by someone with your background in the WNBA. So let me ask you this.
I mean, I love the WNBA, as and all that, but go ahead.
Okay.
I'm not a specialist.
No.
I'm just a fan.
Expert. He's like, whoa.
I'm a fan. But go ahead. A long time fan.
Well, in my circles, you would, I guess, have the most knowledge. So that's why I think this is a relevant question. Okay, here we go. So we look at the NBA and we look about Black coaches. And we say, hey, you know what? The vast majority of players in the NBA are Black. And when you have coaching positions, the Black players are not graduating to behind the bench, unless, I'm saying, to head coaching positions. I know you get some to assistants, but when you get to the head cream of the crop head coaching positions, they're not the same represented of the same players on the court. Now, here's why I kind of land with that. With the WNBA, you kind of have those same numbers where you
That's not
have.
the same.
Oh,
No,
it's not. Okay, go
No,
ahead.
it's
Go ahead.
actually
what
better
I will say
WNBA.
is that with the NBA is changing, you know, you got to look at the coaching decisions and the rotations that have happened the last few years in the WNBA.
Mm,
I mean, in the NBA, a
mm.
good number of those have been Black coaches.
Oh
So
no,
I
for
would
sure.
say in the NBA, that's definitely the tide has turned. In the WNBA, I think you know, like, yeah, you have the Becky Hammonds who, you know, but look at her background. Like, you know, with Vegas, you know, that was used to be, you know, the San Antonio franchise. It just fits that she's in Vegas and she used to play for them. But you do have Black coaches that are in the W, right?
Oh,
Um,
so
so
okay. So
Tanisha
mm,
Wright is, you know, you had Tanisha Wright, Pokey Chapman return, and she's an assistant. James Wade, um, you know, is a coach in the W. You had me have to look this up to make sure I had all the names right.
no, okay. So
Yeah, you
let
do
me.
have some
Okay, so to the WNBA, in regards to players, what's the percentage? Would you say still the vast majority of players are Black women?
in the W.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, cool. So, if the vast majority of players, much like the NBA, where you have the vast majority of players are Black, in the WNBA, how many Black women coaches are there?
well, Black women coaches, there's
Right.
right. You know, head coaches you're talking about.
That's exactly what I'm seeking. That's where I'm
Head
going with this. In
coaches.
regards to
Right.
Okay.
head coaching positions, um,
That's
from
Tanisha Wright.
right. So that's one, right? So and mind you, I know we're
But there's
talking about
quite a few of them in the
we're
front
talking
office
about a
too, PD.
30.
But there's a lot, but you have a number of Black women that are in the front office.
Yeah,
and like
quite a
Nelly
few of them.
said, are in the
Mhm,
front office.
And
mhm.
also part
They're
owners. Like
assistant
we have Atlanta
coaches.
Dream.
Yep,
They
you
have
have part owners. I have, you know, like who knows where, you know, like whether Candace, she's almost done. You know, like I think she'll stay in media, but who knows? Maybe she will, you know what I mean? Like being Lisa Leslie was I don't know if she still is, but was an owner
Mhm.
in the Sparks. So would I like to see more Black women coaches? Sure, but the coaches that they have in place, I don't, you know what I mean? Like I feel like those positions were earned, and I don't feel like I personally, I can't speak for
Mhm.
other fans, but I personally don't, you know, I do not have a gripe. There's,
Sum up my
yeah,
question. I
so it's
guess.
two. Yes,
Okay,
two.
cool. So
only
two
two.
of
James
whatever.
Wade, who's also the GM, because that's what
Mhm.
happens also in W, like the head coach can also be the GM. You have that with
Yes.
some teams. So James Wade is like the decision maker in Chicago. The buck stops with him and
So,
he's the coach.
mhm, mhm. So coming to kind of I guess put a pin in my question here is you say James Wade, so I'm assuming that's a man, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so now we're down to like I'm talking about just Black women going from the court to the sidelines, head coaching. Now I think we're down to just one, right?
One. Yeah, one.
Okay, so I guess in your response to this, the fact that 80% maybe are Black women, but in regards to coaching, there's one you don't really see that is something that's not a problem. That's not really anything that.
Well, I would love to see more Black women head coaches in the W.
Okay, so
I'm
okay.
not gonna. I would love to see that,
Mhm.
especially former players. But
Right. That's what I'm getting at.
you
Exactly.
will have, but you have some former players coaching in college. The incentive, the financial incentive. Becky Hammond got the biggest contract ever, for a NBA coach. It was more. It's always been seen as more lucrative to coach in college than to coach in the W. The pay disparity and visibility and all that.
Yeah.
So you know you'll have more. You have some in college, you know, like that are coaching in college.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? Let's go to for the culture.
But before we do, I do want to say congrats to Maya Moore on her retirement. Big up to her.
Yep.
Ah,
She well deserved. She's been great all her life, like legit all her life. And definitely she's a GOAT. Like she's definitely one of a GOAT. So just big up to her, man. Big up to her career, and congrats to her family, and also her activism, like what she's trying to push for justice in the criminal system that's so corrupt. So yeah, big up to Maya.
They're gonna continue that work.
Love it.
Biomo has already announced that on Good Morning America yesterday that they started a foundation, which they had already, but they're going to put more focus. She's going to put more focus on her family and community and helping others.
Wow.
Maya.
She's doing great work. Also on to someone else who's doing great work also. Let's go to For the Culture.
For the culture. We like to highlight individuals that are for the culture. And today we get to highlight the one and only Maliika Walker. Yes, folks. If you don't know who Maliika is, you gotta follow her at Maliika Walker on Twitter. Okay. Great. Like you're someone that honestly is so insightful, Maliika. You also are one of the hosts for the Hoopstresses on Twitter, which is a group of women talking WNBA and NBA. You're part of the Hoop Spaces family. A big up to all the Hoop Spaces folks. You're a writer, as well as you host your own space and show, TheReWind, which is so thoughtful, really taking you back to a different time in basketball, talking about these players that have, I think, lost a lot of, attention because, the people are focusing on the recency bias, but you'll bring back the gems. But also, I think for me, like you're a leader in the basketball space as a voice, right? And people follow you regardless of gender. You're just someone that is always insightful to the sport. Even though you're a Brooklyn Nets fan, it's okay. We forgive you in Toronto, right? We're Raptors, but it's okay.
Yes,
I think you guys swept us this year. You guys swept us. But Maliika, honestly, like you're definitely for the culture. So walk us through, like, how did you fall in love with basketball? Because you're someone that I think dedicates like your time to basketball, to the sport, to the history of the game, and of course, you're also a reggae, specialist as well in that space. But let's talk about the basketball first. Like, what made you fall in love with the game?
I fell in love with the game when I was younger. My family I fell in love with the game at a time when the Final Four was still must-watch TV. And I'm a little older than a lot of folks that, watch the game like on Twitter, but I remember being 12 when, Jordan was playing at North Carolina. So I go back that far. So I used to watch a lot of college, and I have family members that were Knicks fans, but I was a Nets fan.
That's interesting.
They were from Jersey. And,
exactly.
When you're young, you want to be you want to be, opposite. The one thing I am in line with my family is the Giants.
Okay.
But I also have part of my family are Mets fans. Some of them are Yankee fans, so there's a split there also.
Wow,
but with the Nets,
it's a very tough household. It's Nets, Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, my father's side of the family is mainly Mets fans. My mom's side is mainly Giants fans. So it's it's like that way. But I really love watching the game with some of the family members, and it was a game I could relate to. Whereas football, I used to love watching the game. I kind of dwindled down with watching football because of the CTE issues. That more so than Kaepernick. That's always been, prejudice has always been, but with the NFL, it wasn't a surprise, right? Yeah. For me, it was more CTE. My interest waned when Junior Seau committed suicide.
Yeah.
For me, that changed my love and affection for football as much as it used to be. I still watch it, but I'm not as addicted to it like I used to be. Basketball, to me, it was the safest sport. And I, as a woman, you love tall men. I love tall men. But the beauty of the game, the beauty of watching the competition on the floor. Like I remember the first time I saw a game live, in Jersey. You know, I was high up, but I remember just the feeling of being in the arena. You know what I mean? Even though I'm not a Knicks fan, I remember when I was younger going to Madison Square Garden, just the feeling of being in Madison Square watching the Knicks. You know, even though I'm not a fan of the team, it's just a different vibe. But I love the competition. I love how players just find a way either to defend against the best player, or the best player finds a way to shine and get that basket in the hoop. So that's what started my love affair with the game. I've been watching it since then. So, like, technically, I missed Cheryl Miller's when she played. I didn't really
I was
see
gonna ask
her.
you about that because when Jordan was in college, she was still playing a little bit, Olympics and stuff like that.
But I didn't really get this. I didn't see her play on TV live. I watched a lot of stuff on Cheryl Miller after, and when I realized how great she was. But by the time I started watching her, she wasn't playing anymore. Like, she was out the league. She never got to the league because of her injury. But I used to watch her on TNT all the time, and then I would research the film on how she played. But that's what made me love the game. So that's why I commemorate the game and share my love for the history of the game through the Rewind pod. You know, like, I just love sharing stories on the greatest centers of all time. Like, we had a very special show on Bill Russell.
Yes, I remember
we have
that.
shows on I remember when the Lakers series on HBO, Winning Time, was on. We interviewed some of the people from Winning Time.
Yes.
And talked about that series, and it's, it was exaggerated truth or a dramatization of truth.
Dramatization of truth.
But
the truth is in there, though. Like, some of the things you're watching, you're like, yeah, I believe this is what happened. Maybe not like
some of
how
it
it
happened,
presented.
some of it was like, okay, didn't happen.
Yeah.
It was a reach.
Yeah.
But, we do different, like, I just had a show the other night on Grant Hill. It's based on Grant, talking about the history of Grant Hill and what he brought to the game. In a few weeks,
so, like, what made you want to start the Rewind? Like, what kind of was it? Like, what kind of made you say, you know what, I want to start a show that kind of rewinds you back in time with these players?
Because these are the discussions I wanted to have, and they weren't happening. And I wanted to have them my way. I wanted to talk about what I wanted to talk about, not what, because you have Dime Dropper. Blessings to Dime Dropper. He's a young cat. He's researching the game from the 50s on. I think he's on the 60s now. Young cat. But I wanted to discuss the game my way in my time, and I wanted to be responsible for the content. And I was always told, produce the content, produce the content you want to see or hear. And this is the content that, to me, is a hobby, right? Like, I do finance by day. Like, with NBA, I do finance by day.
Brains for days.
This is a hobby for me, because I do love the game. I'm always reading or listening to books on sports, on the history of the game. Now I'm listening to Grant Hill. Next would be Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, and then after that it'd be 11 Rings. I'm just always looking to learn the history. So, because there's some historians out there that are heavy. Like, I'm in a historian for the basketball historian chat, and some of these cats are heavy. So I'm always reading, so I can, take part, like, I can take part in the conversation too. So, I'm always improving on the knowledge so I can stand on my own too in those conversations.
Love that. Maliika, honestly, it's really interesting that you were like, I want to talk about this, and no one else was doing it, so I'm going to do it. And that's taking initiative, but also creating your own lane, right? There isn't, most women in
it's a niche, and it's a niche thing.
Yeah, like, it's very niche.
It's a niche thing. I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about regardless, because sometimes you may only have a handful of people, but it's still a topic I'm passionate about. It'll find its right audience in due time. But I'm very thorough in what I do.
Your research is
and
impeccable. Like I'm not
I go deep. Yeah, I go deep.
Like I like playing your replays when I'm working because I'm like, yo, Maliika is in depth. Like you go in the depths of the players and there are things I'm just like, how did she even find this out? But I can tell like you research, you ask other people questions, but like every show you put on, it's thoughtful, it's insightful. It's not like, hey, I have a space open, let's talk about Grant Hill. Y'all liked him or not? You know, it's not TMZ. It's really like educational. So anyone who's listening, definitely go to her Twitter. So all your replays are still on there, or like how can they find past rewind shows? Like
I'm actually on YouTube.
Perfect.
And all of my Hoop Spaces. I joined the Hoop Spaces network.
Big up Hoop Spaces.
Big up.
Real quick. I wasn't going to do any of the, I was just, during the pandemic, I didn't know about this thing called Clubhouse. And one day I was like, I was always in the house by myself during the pandemic and freaking out. And I was like, I need something that will distract me. And then I found this app called Clubhouse. And then I saw that there was this NBA on CH room. And I was like, what is this? So that's when I was learning. And I was listening to Chris and Lenny. That's when Lenny was in there too. We're doing those rooms every day. And I was like, and the way Chris managed the room, and his voice is like a radio host.
Yes.
And I was like, kind of like this. I like his vibe. He makes you feel comfortable, and he was inviting everyone up. And one day I got up there to speak, and he's like, "Yo, I think you could really do this." And Chris just has a way of convincing you can do something. So I felt it was really rough going at first, but eventually, because I was doing the Nets room first, and I was getting involved with Nets Daily and doing that kind of stuff. And he was like, "What is your thing? What do you want to do?" And I was like, well, I love hoops history. I'm always looking at documentaries, reading books on hoops and football and different things. He's like, but create content around that. And I didn't even think about doing that because I didn't think nobody liked it but me. Other people are watching it, but to really talk about it,
yeah,
that's where it started from. It all comes from Chris and him planting those seeds. And he still helps me to this day, like with ideas and ways of doing things. Like I have an problem where if I'm between thoughts, I go, and he's working with me a little bit and how to fix that. But
she says, I have a problem.
You're not alone. You're not alone. That's common. That's common
though. Like sometimes I think like you also need to be yourself, but yeah, I think that will take time, right? No one starts a show or these things that's a passion project perfectly, right? So it's all about learning, okay, I have to work on those things. Fahim knows when I first started, I was saying like every sentence.
Oh my God, that's another
like.
bosses.
So now
one of my old bosses used to say that word.
But now I don't say it as much. But if I'm like thinking, it's kind of like your filler word when you say those words, the the likes. Everyone has those. So the goal is to be aware of it and then try to move away, but that takes time. And that's with
I think I'm gonna write out my script a little more because right now I take a lot of notes when I look at something or read something, but I need to write out my script and it'll be fine. But that's where I started. It was really from Chris and the Hoop Spaces network, and he's on Hoop Spaces on Twitter. He still does his daily show, which is addictive. Like I would love to work with the Alumni Association and interview players and bring their stories to people. That's what I'm working up to as one of the things I want to do, or investigative reporting. Like I did a room on JUCO that had coaches and former players. One of the guys on there was an international player. He was actually overseas. And he called in and some coaches on the women and men's side. And I'm gonna do another room like that in a few weeks. And I just wanted to explore those stories. And they were so excited to do the room because no one wants to talk about JUCO, and it was good attendance. So I like talking about things like that. And like my dream room is to do a room on basketball, a love story. I want to do a series of and I'm probably going to do it as a podcast, do a series
Yes,
of reviews
podcast.
looking through Basketball Love Story. But my podcast is coming.
Yes, get excited.
I was going to try to shop it around. So I'm just going to do it my damn self. And if somebody's interested,
Hell
they
yeah.
will do it. I'll figure it out. Some of them will be interviews with hoop historians at first, or depending on the topic. Like I'm gonna do one on N1 with someone that used to work at N1 to talk about the N1 history and documentaries. And my plan is to definitely start recording and start publishing episodes in about a month.
Okay. And that was actually going to be segueing to my question, because I was going to ask, because you do the rewind right now. Let me just say though, so Grant Hill is my high school days, pretty much. Like I remember watching, that Duke Michigan rivalry. So I did take in some of the Grant Hill that you did. Now the game. When you did it, did you read the book first? Because I saw that
I'm reading the book now.
Reading it now because.
But what I did was I listened to his All the Smoke episode. He did an episode of the show with the other show that was before Undisputed. It's with Darius Miles, and it's another basketball podcast.
Okay.
I know the name. It's right at the tip of my tongue. It's done by the Players Union. But that's another show.
You're talking with Quentin Richardson
yeah.
and Darius Miles. Yeah. Can't remember the name of it, but I know exactly. Yeah.
He did a lot of interviews around the book. So
okay.
I finished, and it's interesting because, and plus people, when they come to my room, they're not coming for a dissertation.
Is it called Blindsided?
No,
it's a Players Tribute.
Knuckleheads.
Podcast.
It's called Knuckleheads.
Knuckleheads.
Right. Yeah, because
that's a good podcast too.
Yeah. Okay.
All the Smoke gets a lot of publicity because they're Showtime.
Right.
But, and Matt Barnes is good. I think Matt Barnes is the one that really sells that show. But anyway, I like Steven Jackson. I just think that he's the better interviewer, Matt Barnes. But I watched those. But I remember, like I said, I'm a little older than a lot of guys, like that are on Twitter and all that. I remember the Grant Hill years. I know his story. He got injured and he was never the same. Like, unfortunately, his best time of him as a player was when he was playing on a team that wasn't really competitive, and that was the Pistons.
Yeah.
And it's interesting though when you listen to the book, because the nugget I just heard today was that he didn't him and Jerry Stackhouse, they were just teammates, right? It wasn't like this. You know how people have a vision that teammates are friends? No, they're not.
I know folks think that all the time. Like, I'm like, have you ever played in a team? Some people you play with in the court, but you can't stand them off the court.
Yeah, it's not normal. They didn't dislike each other. No, they didn't say anything like that. It's just that they were teammates. It wasn't
exactly. They weren't like, but I think people assumed just because we play together, that means that we're we're best blood. We talk about all our lives, and
that's what he was explaining. Like everybody showed up to they showed up to play the game, but it was different from his Duke years where he had he had pretty good relationships with his teammates. When you switch over to pro, it's a different relationship. So it was interesting hearing how he talked about what Joe Dumars really wasn't. When he got there, he was separate kind of from the team, even though he was still a player.
Wow.
A little bit. But he wasn't mean, like I said, but it wasn't like he was mean or
no, like they weren't close. It wasn't like a close relationship.
Yeah, it wasn't like that extreme close bond like that.
Yeah.
Like he was more going towards management, and he was seen as a little different while he was the star player. So it was a different relationship. So it was interesting hearing that slant. That's something you're not going to get from his story unless you listen to the book, because he doesn't talk about that on these interviews either, right? But I didn't finish the book yet, but I recommend it. I recommend listening to it because he reads it.
Hold on. Grant Hill actually reads the book in the audiobook.
Yeah.
For those who want to know about the book, what is it called? It's
called why am I blanking, or what is it?
Something the game. It says something the game.
The game. It's called Game. It's called Game.
Okay. Perfect.
And it's like I just finished listening to Dr. J. That's another really good topic that I just had on Dr. J. I was going to write an article on it, but I didn't. But Dr. J was another great space we had last week.
So there's also maybe another layer to this. It was Jerry Stackhouse and Grant Hill, right? Both near North Carolina. You have a Duke and Tar Heel. They already have that rivalry already, from the school. So there could be another element to that also. But
no, but he also noted that Jerry Stackhouse was traded after the Allen Iverson was drafted. Remember, they got Allen Iverson. I think he played with Iverson for a year, and then he was traded out.
Okay.
Because they had their new cornerstone in Philly. So he was traded to Detroit after that. So when he got there, it wasn't like, he lost, like he was, I guess he may have had a different vision of, I don't know. Jerry Stackhouse is always interesting because he was a really good player, but I feel like he just didn't have the right fit on his team. Like it wasn't a team catered around his talent. And I believe that's why we never saw like the group, how better he could have been than he already was. I think it was a fit thing, but it wasn't. Grant Hill made sure it was clear they were fine. What I mean? It wasn't any
animosity. Yeah.
It's just that it's different relationships on a pro level than when you go from 4 years of college and having. In some years you had the same teammates. And this is a different relationship, how you depend on each other.
It's business.
It's business now. And also I feel like back then college was 4 years. Like you were doing 3 to 4 years.
Now they only stay in a year.
Right. Or now I know the NBA is gonna like their goal is to go back to the high school. So and now there's things like Ignite leagues and different things where you don't even have to go.
Now the AAU is equivalent.
That's why I watch women's. That's why I'm addicted to the women's especially when it gets closer to tournament time. I also recommend Fahim Dr. J's book because he reads his book.
Dr. J's autobiography. What's that one called?
While you're looking at it on Dr. J's story. Well, actually, it's not really Dr. J's story. Something that involves Dr. J. I think of this is actually for Chris. Doc Rivers. Apparently the reason why he got the nickname Doc is because he had a t-shirt at a 5-star camp in high school. And I'm not sure who the coach was, but remember his name, which was Glenn. So I guess maybe because he had the Doc Rivers, he had the Dr. J t-shirt, he kept calling him Doc all tournament for the summer. And then that's where he got his name from, Doc. Like Dr. J was, obviously, as we know, the Michael Jordan before Michael Jordan, right? So, yeah.
No, it's a good story actually. So I found that the name is called Dr. J, the autobiography, and it's doing really well. And it's doing really well on Amazon, Goodreads. Like it's excellent. Like he is high scoring. It was published in 2013. I'm surprised I didn't read about that. So question for you, Maliika. So there's quite a few autobiography books, right? And I'm curious to know, like, where do you rank these guys? I'm assuming you've read probably like most of these. So one, of course, Kobe Bryant's Mamba Mentality book, Michael Jordan, The Life. That was by Roland. Not by Jordan, but by Roland Lazenby. Then they have the Becoming Kareem.
We're going to do a real autobiography. That's never happening.
Yeah, I wish MJ, honestly, I hope he does one. Like but he's so busy, but I hope he does one. Becoming Kareem. That one, growing up on and off the court, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar story, and then Phil Jackson's 11 Rings and Larry Bird Urban Magic. It's called When the Game Was Ours by Larry Bird, Magic. I didn't know they had a book.
That's really together. Jackie McMullen's book. That's a Jackie McMullen book, When the Game Was Ours.
Yeah, with Jackie McMullen.
Who's one of my favorite historians to follow, but I don't like some of her cadences. But I will say. One of the books that you did not mention is one of my favorites, and I didn't think it would be, is the autobiography of Jerry West. Ooh. He reads his book as well. And you hear his story, and it's something else.
Really? Okay, now I have to listen to it now.
He was really he was depressed for most of his life. And had real issues in that area. So when Winning Time, they went too far with some of it, I think. Right. But he really was he really had depression issues. So Jerry West was one of my favorites because he owned up to his issues, his faults. He talked about other players like Oscar Robertson he thought were great. And I really loved his book. Funny thing is, I haven't read When the Game Was Ours yet. I know Magic's story backwards and forwards because I heard him talk about his story I don't know how many times. But Roland, the same guy that wrote Michael
MJ's?
Jordan's expose book, My Life, The Life, but there's no surprises in there. But anyway,
Yeah, we all know.
he's doing one on magic. So this is a book on
Interesting.
magic that magic is not controlling. So I want to read that book. But Magic put out a few books, but I love Magic and I know his story backwards and forwards, but I'm looking forward to that book. When the Game Was Ours, I'm curious of how Jackie did it, but I'm probably going to read that one, not listen, because I think it's going to be coming from her, not from Magic and Larry.
Yeah.
So I'll
It says it's
read
by
it.
them, but to your point, Jackie probably wrote it, edited it, but maybe like they obviously had
It
some
was a
posts
story
in
that they
there.
told her.
Yeah.
Yeah, story they told her. That one, I'm going to read that one, but I'm not as Magic and Bird. I saw so many documentaries on their story. I'm not going to learn anything new in that book.
Agreed.
So for me, I would say Bill Russell's autobiography is one of my favorites because he's talking about stories that happened to him 50s and the 60s. That was crazy. Some of the things he went through, like when they, did number 2 in his bed.
Yeah, I remember that story. Actually, Bill Russell's daughter comes on Clubhouse. So I've heard her speak about.
Karen is also on Karen Russell is also on Twitter.
Oh, is she?
So I
Okay,
was
because
going to reach out for an interview. I was going to reach
I've
out
heard
to
her
her.
on Clubhouse and she shared so many stories, and I'm like, oh my gosh,
Wow.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like I heard
been
things like
through it.
between people, but hearing from her daughter's perspective and what her dad went through, and seeing that she saw like how he would hide a lot of those things from the public, and listen, when he was playing basketball back in those times, it was different pressures. You know what I'm saying?
It was different. It was different. Like, so I love the history of the game so I like to read like those stories from back then. I just read a book on Wilt Chamberlain, on his story. Like, and one of the debates that keeps happening is I saw something yesterday. This is a tangent. I'm sorry. Spencer Dinwiddie said something on a podcast where, you put me 6'6" at his size, at his skill, you put him back in the 50s and 60s, he would have cooked those guys. You're not taking into account that you wouldn't have been able to take your skill back to the 50s. You wouldn't be able to take everything you learned. Each decade grew on the last one. So the game is where it is today because of pioneers that came before you. And if you weren't playing in the 50s, you wouldn't have the skill you have now, and you wouldn't be playing under the current rules. Like if you handled the ball the way you handle it now, you wouldn't make it up the court because you'll be called for a carry.
Every
There's
time.
certain things like, so when they make statements like that, it's like, it annoys me. You're not respecting those that put you in this position. Like Oscar Robinson is not heralded as like he should.
Agreed.
He's why you have free agency.
Right.
Give him some love. Give him some respect. So I feel like that's another reason. I feel like their stories are getting lost. And that's why I take it upon myself to make sure I represent the history of the game.
Great stuff. Nellie J. At this point, so we just finished up our For the Culture segment.
Featuring Maliika Walker. Follow her, support her.
Definitely. Links all up in the bio and everything. Definitely got to tap in, especially if you're looking for like a real mature discourse. She brings it.
I talk about recent stuff sometimes. I'm going to have a draft show coming up on the upcoming draft, but I do specialize in history. I'm going to be talking to some draft historians about the upcoming draft, and just how deep is it? And we're going to talk about it with the draft review and Evan Townsend. I just got to schedule it, but that's coming soon.
Awesome. Coming soon. Nellie J, at this point, do you want to go to our final segment, which is That's Absurd?
That's absurd. Fahim, bro, what was absurd this week? What was absurd?
We all are well aware of the Damar Hamlin incident. Unfortunate incident that happened. The following week, the Pittsburgh Steelers did a CPR touchdown dance after scoring a touchdown.
I didn't know about this.
Absurd.
Absurd. Yeah. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, hashtag too soon, hashtag inappropriate, hashtag absurd, hashtag what are we doing? What are we doing, y'all? Maliika, your thoughts on this?
That's crazy. I didn't hear about that, but I just, like I mentioned, I watch all the games, but I'm not up on everything that happens. Like First Take, sometime if it does, I watch First Take for entertainment, not for information.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But Stephen A. Smith is a Steelers fan. I don't remember him mentioning this incident, but I didn't know about it. So, but it's absurd. I did see the Damar Hamlin. That was a heavy night. That was the one night I was watching, and I was like, "What the?" Like before that, I was shocked. But it's a blessing that he's still with us and he's home and all of that.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when this happened. I heard about it. I watched the highlight of it, and I was just like, "What are we doing?" Very immature. Just I don't know, man. And this is like Steeler fans, man. Like that was just. And I was kind of hoping the Bills would play Steelers, but whenever they play them next year, I know they're going to remember that. So stay tuned.
Well, so Nelly J, you just mentioned about maybe it could be hashtag too soon. They've done the celebration before, apparently. So it's, apparently it's an ongoing thing. Nelly J, you watch a lot more football than me.
Yeah, but not Steelers game because they've been whacked this year. I haven't watched.
Okay, but
is
that the truth that they have done that celebration before?
I honestly, I've not heard that before. Like when it happened, people were like, "What?" But when I remember, I asked a Steelers fan about this, and he was like, he was shocked they did it, and he watched all Steeler games. He didn't mention that.
Okay, they didn't mention that.
Ongoing thing. I mean, where's the footage of it?
Right. Well, regardless, even if they did, that would have been an opportunity to use better judgment and not doing it if they did.
Yeah. Like,
and if they didn't, them doing it on that following week is absurd. So in both, any way you flip it, it's still absurd.
Yeah.
100%. All right. Let's inhale, exhale, and let's break out. Now, DJ, let's put this episode in the books.
Yes, y'all. That was a Good Rookie Show. So Maliika, as a special guest on the Good Rookie Show, this is when we give our guests a chance to do a special shout out. So it could be to a group, family, anybody. So you have it. The floor is yours.
Wow. Shout out to, my family and friends. Shout out to Chris, Hoopspaces, the whole Hoopspaces network, especially Nat. So you want to be a GM? Cedric and Sean, live at the Mecca, the Knicks fans. Even though they're Knicks fans, I forget.
They're cool. They're cool.
They're cool people.
And Nelly, you too. I mean, shout out to you guys. Y'all do y'all Raptor Spaces after every. You guys watch Raptor games, like during on Clubhouse, right? Is when
yeah, we do that.
So shout out to y'all commitment to the Raptors. And hail great, like the number one Raptors fan and representative around the world. And Nets World, by Nets World family. We got this.
Thank you to Nets World. Y'all, like when I go in there after the Raptors lost, they were gentle. They weren't as harsh as I thought they would be, but it's always great supporting.
They like
going in there. Yeah, they're mad. Pardon me.
They like you.
They were so cool with me. I was like, but also because I wasn't going there like, yo, I'm like, yeah. I mean, I knew who the Raptors were, and it's just like there's two different levels here.
But Raptors fan, well, y'all are knowledgeable. I will say that. Y'all, whenever I talk to Raptors fan, y'all are knowledgeable about the game and about your team, and y'all be on it. Y'all be on it. I haven't spoken to a casual Raptors fan yet.
Nice.
Yeah, the casuals come out only when we're like winning a lot of games. When we're losing like this, you have to be a true fan.
Right.
Yeah.
Talking about the Raptors.
Yeah. But it was an honor to be on your podcast. Thanks for having me on, and I appreciate it. Hopefully, I sound smart.
Oh no, nah, man. We're gonna have all your information, your YouTube link, everything, so folks can tap in with you and support. So, love having you on here for sure. I do actually want to shout you out, Maliika. Thank you for coming on here. Sharing your knowledge, and really I'm like I thought I read a lot, but I'm like, wow, I haven't read Dr. J books, I haven't read Bill Russell, so
I listen to those books. I read a lot, but audiobooks, you can get through more books than yeah. So I'm definitely going to tap into a few books that you recommended for sure, because I like I like playing books when I'm working, so this is going to be good, right? It's going to be really That's
good.
what I do. That's what I do.
Mm-hmm. And I also want to shout out the fact that we're going to have a WNBA game in Toronto, May 13th. I'm going to say it again. Let's make sure that we show these athletes a lot of love. So whenever they announce tickets, all that stuff, please bring your family, children, everyone. This is going to be great. We also have a league in Toronto called Hoop Queens.
Oh, okay.
It's actually the first pro women's league in Toronto, and it's founded by a woman, a Black queen as well, and they're getting paid to play. So big up to Hoop Queens. Kisa, I followed her on Hoop Instagram, Queens. And actually saw her also at the Scarborough games for our CEBL. But yeah, she founded the league in July of 2020, and she's also on Twitter. But big up to Kisa K and the Hoop Queens, who also had the women's league, and they're paying these ladies to play in the league. So yeah, I'm loving that the city is going to see a lot of basketball this summer on the women's side and the men's side. So big up to them.
Nice.
Big up to Tia Nurse and the Canadian.
My shout out is going to be straight to Maliika Walker. When I heard you coming, I was really excited, just because I know the work that you put in, and even if I haven't tapped into some of your work, just hearing the topics that you've been covering over like the last year or two, I've been really impressed. You're talking about things that others might be just a thought, but to see that you have a platform for it, you're putting in the work. I was excited to just kind of tap into that and let people know what you have going on with that. Appreciate that you answered my WNBA thought I had in regards to coaching and seeing if there really is something there. Appreciate that also. And the projects you got coming up also in regards to Mahmoud Abdul Rauf. You mentioned that coming in, which I think is going to be great. You got the podcast transitioning also, which is going to be great also. So you embodied everything that I think at Goodways Rookies we're trying to highlight. So hopefully we did a great job of
I appreciate
bringing you to the table.
Yeah, this was fun. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Nice. And for everybody, I just want to say I'm pretty sure we can all give him thanks. Chris, Hoopspaces, the plug-in, I guess, the connect of even maybe us even meeting right now, seeing family, and Chris is doing amazing work providing content creators like Maliika and us an opportunity to follow our passions. So we all just want to shout out Chris for that also. Maliika, we got your back in anything you need. Definitely. I see big things.
Raptors room. So we need to talk about some classic Toronto Raptors teams.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned that. You tweeted out something and I shared it. But yeah, whenever you want to do the Toronto Raptors, any classics. Yeah. There's also, have you seen the Vince Carter Effect film documentary? I think it's on Netflix.
Well, I will watch it before the show.
Yeah.
How I prepare. So.
Yeah. That'll be a good one to watch. It talks about how Vince Carter, that dunk contest, how much it changed the landscape of now basketball and hockey competing in Toronto. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's pretty dope.
All right, Nelly J. So let's put this episode in the books.
Yes, y'all. It's a good rookie show. If you had a good time, you enjoyed yourself, please like and subscribe. And tell a friend to tell a friend. We're
on all platforms if you're looking for us. That's Good Rookie Show. Maliika, we appreciate you coming out. And we out.
Have a good one.